go about the world of the Balkans. We are going to speak about the causes, the processes and the consequences of this last war-like conflict to take place in the European area. And we should start about the causes. And the main reason was the arose of nationalism in the last year. The nationalism is the need a group has of a nation and cultural unity. Serbian nationality, having ethnic base, is an example of this feeling. This nationalism was born before Yugoslavia as a country was created. While Josip Broz Tito, one of the parents of the country, was in the power, he kept his 6 republics under control and made all the national expression to be minimized. But after his death in 1980, some of the taboos of the communist era were broken. Slobodan Milosevic, Socialist Republic of Serbia's officers, developed the main spokesman of the national from 1987. Milosevic and others offered several passionately nationalist and populist speeches where they spoke about the importance of Serbia in the world and defended a radical politic and extreme aggressiveness.
Naroda I narodnosti. Drugarice I drugovi, mnogi ovdje danas pamte kako u tim danima ništa nije bilo teško i kako se ljudima činilo da je sve lako i moguće u slobodi. I u toj slobodi građani Beograda kao i čitave naše zemlje uspjeli su mnogo da urade. Danas, dnevni zbog krize u kojoj se nalazimo, skloni smo da zaboravimo sve dobro i vredno što smo u dugim i teškim godinama sami i sa radošću stvorili. Istina je da smo stali na putu za društvo koje smo u revoluciji želeli, ali nije istina da to društvo ne možemo da ostvarimo, da od puta treba da odustanemo.
From 1988, Milosevic's aim was to destabilize Montenegro and Serbia Herzegovina to place there a government able to support Serbia with these ideas. In 1989, as the media diffused the message of the constant fight of Serbian citizens in Bosnia and Herzegovina, tension among Serbian, Bosnian and Croatian arose. Since the beginning of the year, Milosevic had planned to offer help to Serbians in Croatia and Bosnia and Herzegovina, creating Serbian province in both regions, but this was rejected by Sarajevo and Zagreb. When Milosevic and the government tried to change the condition of the government, giving more power to the Serbian, Slovenia opposed itself and with Croatia denounced this situation. These tensions led to the declaration of the independence of Serbia and Croatia from Yugoslavia.
The War of Independence in Slovenia took place in 1991, directly after the independence declaration of Slovenia, and it was caused by the emerging nationalism. The war lasted only 10 days, because the independence war in Russia was approaching and the army didn't want to waste time and arms in this conflict. The conflict exploded on 26 January 1991, when the Yugoslavian army went out of the barracks and tried to control the border with Italy. It made the Slovenian people to react against this movement, but managed to control the frontier in a pacific way. The Yugoslavian army started to make arrive tanks, planes and all sorts of warlike instruments to be used in case it needed, and the first attacks took place. The Yugoslavian army had controlled most of the frontier post again. On the third day, real combat started, and there were attacks all over the Slovenian territory. There was also the problem of the Slovenian soldiers abandoning the Yugoslavian army and joining their conflicts. When the attacks continued, the European Union hurried up to try to find a diplomatic solution. From the fifth day, Slovenian army reached different victories, while the Yugoslavian army is forced to retire from different territories. Finally, on 3rd July 1991, the Yugoslavian army accepted the ceasefire and started retiring themselves. Finally, it was agreed to accept the Slovenian police, an army well considered as sovereign. The Yugoslavian army had to abandon Slovenia and completed the process on 26 October. In 15 January 1992, Slovenia was recognized as a member of the European Community. Nearly at the same time, after the referendum in May 1991, most of the Croatians wanted to become independent from Yugoslavia, and the European Commission asked Croatia to wait to act. Even Croatia declared its independence on 25 June 1991 and decided to wait for 3 months to make it effective.
The Serbian areas were better prepared to take part in warlike conflict. They had access to arms and a better position to start attacking the Croatian areas. The UN says the arms with it affected more seriously to the Croatians than to the Serbians. In July 1991, after the War of Independence in Slovenia, the Yugoslavian army started performing different actions in different areas mainly populated by Croatians. Real war started in August. At that point, the Yugoslavian army was in fact a Serbian army. The population was forced to move. More than 550,000 persons became refugees in the Croatian area during 1991. Different operations in ethnic cleaning were performed, what included from expelling people to kill them. The city of Dubrovnik was sacked and the government in Zagreb bombed. Both incidents were considered by the European Community as enough reason to sanction Serbia.
Finally, the city of Vukovar was nearly destroyed. The only positive effect we can find in it is that it is attracted enough money back to try to help resolve the conflict. At the end of December 1991, the Serbian provinces declared independence. Several ceasefires were agreed, but not respected for enough time. Finally, on 21st January 1992, a ceasefire was agreed during the time it lasted. Croatia was considered part of the United Nations. The conflict continued, with brief battles, with different operations that took part during 1992 and 1993, even when most of them were Croatian victories. Operator Mida was investigated by the Hague Court some of the Croatian officers. It changes the opinion about Croatia in the world. The UN ordered Croatia to abandon several occupied places and abandon different armed interventions. In March 1994, the authorities in Kahina signed a ceasefire. During this year, the Croatians were not only fighting against Serbians, but also against Bosnia. From this ceasefire, the UN tried to help both parties to arrive to a solution to the conflict. At the beginning of May 1995, violence arose again. Rajina was attacked and occupied by Croatia, caused the exodus of thousands of Syrian citizens. It was considered an ethnic cleansing by International Amnesty, the biggest since Second World War. The Croatian army fought against Serbians in Bosnia, but it was ordered to stop from international institutions. Some months later, the agreement of Dayton was seen as the end of the war.
In 1991, the conflict arose to Bosnia and Herzegovina, where the Croatian Bosnians and the Muslim Bosnians fought due mainly to a religious conflict. Finally, there were three religions involved: Orthodox, Catholics, and Muslims.
It was the more cruel of all the conflict in Yugoslavia, including episodes of ethnic cleansing.
Later, on 8 September 1991, Macedonia declared independence in a peaceful way. How can North Macedonia acquire its independence peacefully?
An independence referendum was held in North Macedonia on 8 September 1991. It was approved by 96.4% of voters with a round turnout of 75.7%. What percentage of the population agreed to separate from Yugoslavia? Both Montenegro and Macedonia.
In North Macedonia, referendum was approved by 96.4% of votes, with a turnout of 75.7%. Montenegro acquired its independence from Serbia in 2006 via a referendum of which the majority of the population agreed to separate from their mother country. Which countries fought in the Croatian War?
In this war, you can see the belligerents participants.
Organizations and countries participated in the Bosnian conflict, and what was its outcome?
Simultaneously, in 1992, the Bosnian War took place in Bosnia and Herzegovina and was directly connected with the Croatian War. The ones involved were The Bosnian conflict was an ethnically root war in Bosnia and Herzegovina, a former republic of Yugoslavia with a multi-ethnic population comprising Bosnians, Bosnian Muslims, Serbs and Croats. After years of bitter fighting that involved three Bosnian groups as well as the Yugoslav army, Western countries being supported by the North Atlantic Treaty Organization, imposed a final ceasefire negotiated in Dayton, Ohio, USA. In 1995, nobody came on top and the war ended on a military stalemate.
Due to the international pressure, all sides were forced to leave arms and find a solution for conflict negotiating.
The war in Bosnia ended officially by the signature of the Agreement of Dayton on 14 December 1995. Montenegro was always the most faithful ally for Serbia during the conflict. When Yugoslavia split, they decided to continue together, forming the Federal Republic of Yugoslavia.
At the end of February 1998, a new armed conflict started, the war in Kosovo. It was a conflict between the Federal Republic of Yugoslavia, so Serbia and Montenegro at that moment, and the Albanian rebel group in Kosovo that revolted against the Yugoslavia authorities, even when different actions had taken place since 1991, it was not until 1998 that they were answered by the Yugoslavian army.
After trying to solve this problem by diplomatic means, then NATO took part in the conflict, reporting the Albanian rebel group bombing the region. This fact made many Albanians in Kosovo to be expelled by Yugoslavian forces. After the signature of Treaty of Kumanovo, 9 June 1999, Yugoslavian and Serbian forces retired themselves from Kosovo, allowing international troops to enter. On February 2008, the Parliament of Kosovo declared independence from Serbia, even when currently they only have a partial international recognition.
Even nowadays, the situation continues being very fragile and unstable. Now we will send the signal to our second studio, where our colleague Candela is going to inform us about other.
Thank you, Lucia. We are comparing now this conflict with other similar and contemporary conflicts being solved in a different way. We will start by the dissolution of USSR.
On the 25th of December 1991, the world watched as the most powerful communist country in history collapsed. Following the resignation of Mikhail Gorbachev, the Union of Soviet Socialist Republics, or USSR, dissolved into 15 independent states, marking the Federation's downfall and ending the Cold War, which had lasted 44 years between the East and the West. The reasons for the collapse are subject to much debate. However, many place blame on the eighth and final leader of the Soviet Union, Mikhail Gorbachev. In 1985, Gorbachev was elected General Secretary of the Communist Party. For many, this was a relief and sign of hope, as he promised a program of reform and fundamental change. The Soviet economy had come to a halt after a 20-year period known as the era of stagnation. This time of political and economic stagnation came under the leadership of Leonid Brezhnev, the fifth leader of the USSR. Stagnation thrived under Brezhnev, as the leaders of the Soviet Union were comfortable in their positions and did not feel they needed to implement change. This meant innovation was scarce, and the USSR, both politically and economically, was lagging far behind the Western world. The Soviet Union was also in the midst of the Cold War with the West, and the nuclear arms race was draining a lot of its resources. Gorbachev tried to de-escalate the Cold War, proposing a 50% reduction in nuclear weapons. However, his proposal was rejected in 1986. Stagnation, coupled with a high military budget, led to a crippled Soviet Union, which Gorbachev attempted to fix with his reforms. These modifications came in the form of perestroika and glasnost. Perestroika, or restructuring, allowed parts of the centrally planned economy to be opened up to private enterprise. By introducing market mechanisms, Gorbachev hoped the economy would be revitalized, as the centrally planned economy could not meet the demands of the population, from production to the prices of goods. Part of perestroika was the encouragement of joint ventures, which allowed foreign firms to establish businesses in the USSR. This later saw the first McDonald's open in Moscow in 1990. In 1988, cooperatives were also legalized, allowing small-scale businesses to be established. These businesses could set their own prices and keep their own profits, resulting in a thriving sector of small shops, restaurants and cafes. However, within just a few years, the reforms so many had hoped for had not become a reality. Price control still remained in most businesses, as did most government controls over the means of production. Gorbachev's reforms therefore amounted to nothing more than half measures, incapable of creating the favoured economic results so many had expected. The other reform was known as glasnost, or transparency. The Communist Party had become rife with corruption and nepotism, resembling a power block of inefficient and self-serving politicians. Realising this, Gorbachev introduced glasnost, which encouraged open discussion and began the process of democratization. This resulted in a wave of criticism against the party, with many leading reformers resigning. Streamlining of the party also took place, whereby departments of the Central Committee were reduced from 20 to 9, with further clampdowns on corruption also being implemented. Perhaps the most significant of his reforms was seen at the 19th Party Conference in June 1988, whereby Gorbachev extended the principle of multi-candidate elections, later resulting in the abolition of Article 6 in March 1990, ending the Communist Party's monopoly of power. By the end of the year, the Communist Party was powerless. Local elections had seen Communist candidates defeated across the country, with Leningrad seeing the opposition gain 60% of the seats. Russian nationalist Boris Yeltsin also played a significant role. Gorbachev's main opponent, Yeltsin, won the Moscow mayoral election and used the position as a platform to encourage nationalist movements, both in the non-Russian republics and within Russia itself. Nationalists saw the removal of the Brezhnev Doctrine as a signal that a declaration of independence might be accepted. The Brezhnev Doctrine was the policy of military intervention whenever a satellite state tried to move away from communism. By ending this, Gorbachev removed his control over the satellite states without replacing the policy with anything that would retain his control. So on the 11th of March 1990, Lithuania declared itself an independent nation, the first of the Soviet republics to do so. Independence movements quickly grew in the non-Russian satellite states, many holding free elections as a result of the glasnost reform. Soviet regimes quickly collapsed without military backing from the USSR, seeing the destruction of the Berlin Wall on November 9, 1989, and many other Soviet leaderships failing elsewhere. Multiple factors played a role in the collapse of the Soviet Union, with many placing blame on Gorbachev and his failed reforms, and others viewing the event as inevitable due to the negative legacy of Brezhnev. The downfall of the USSR can be attributed to a combination of factors, from high military spending and a foreign policy that bred nationalist sentiment, to an economy crippled by years of stagnation and neglect. It is impossible to place the fall of the Union on one factor alone. Whatever the cause may be, the downfall of the Soviet Union was a pivotal event in recent history, marking the end of a massive economic and political superpower that helped shape the events of the 20th century. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the video, make sure to like and subscribe, and comment down below what video you would like us to do next.
And now about the split of Czechoslovakia.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Evening News. In Slovakia, they say we don't serve in our pubs alcohol to communists anymore. Also, the same saying is in Czech Republic, because these two countries are connected in this era. London and Berlin are under alien attack. What do you think? Is it believable or unbelievable? Tell me more. The breaking news are coming from Czechoslovakia. People are unhappy over the regime they have right now. Young students and people get around the center of Prague and Bratislava to show their unsatisfaction. Yes, Michael? Oh, wonderful. I just got the news that one of our men is in the field in the center of Prague. Michael? Michael? Do you hear me? Can you please tell us something more about the situation, which is in Czechoslovakia? Hello! Yes! Hello, people in America! It's me, Mikey. Today, they have in Czechoslovakia brand new velvet revolution. Yes, what is it? What does it mean? We have to get closer to it. Firstly, young students came here. Okay, they came here. You can see it. They are behind me mostly. They came here and they jiggle with the keys. Jiggle with the keys. Yes. So they came and they were protesting because they have really bad regime here. It's called socialism or communism. As you know, they are not happy with it. They don't want to be with Soviet Union anymore. So let's just say like, okay, let's get a bit free. So let's jiggle with the keys. Yes, and they did it. They did it, and it's wonderful. They are being honest. They are being true. They have a leader. He's called Václav Havel. Also many important Czechoslovakian actors. For example, like Mr. Kňažko and so on, and they are fighting for it. They are fighting for it with jiggling with keys. Yes, police came and they tried to be really aggressive sometimes, but it didn't work at all. And now we will see what this revolution will bring to Czechoslovakia. Wonderful, thank you, Michael. And this is all from Czechoslovakia. Be happy and don't drink vodka with communists. Peace.
Tu vas redescendre, tu redescendras par là, il y a une marge.
fóra. Vyslovili sa za manifestačný generálny štrajk, ktorý môže mať rôzne podoby, tak, aby umožnil každému vyjadriť solidaritu s požiadavkami študentov a občianskych iniciatív zameraných proti násiliu a za zásadné systémy.
Now we are sending our signal to studio number 3, where a talk show will have place.